Why does every great shonen anime seem to have a rival? The rivalry trope is one of, if not the most common trope in shonen anime. In fact, rivalries are often more important than villains, love interests, or even mentors in anime. So what is the shonen rivalry trope? Anime rivalries are an iconic plot device used to further the development of the main character. However, it is important to note that there is a difference between a rival and an enemy. Not every enemy is a rival. A rival is someone pursuing a similar goal, someone who mirrors the protagonist, someone who forces growth, someone the audience constantly compares to the hero. A useful distinction between an enemy and a rival: an enemy exists to be defeated, whereas a rival exists to be a challenge. An enemy is usually temporary, while a rival is usually recurring. An enemy tests strength, and a rival tests identity. A good example would be Frieza is an enemy, Vegeta is a rival. So why do writers use rivalries? 1. It's motivation for the main character. A rival gives the protagonist a benchmark. Naruto wanting to save Sasuke fuels his desire to grow stronger. Asta wants to become the Wizard King, and to do that he has to surpass Yuno. Hinata recognizes Kageyama's talent for volleyball and wants to live up to his expectations and be a valuable asset to the team. Without rivals, growth often just feels arbitrary, measuring progress. Even when there isn't a villain, rivalries create tension. We often see the characters having training arcs and progressing on their own, and that leaves the audience wondering who's stronger now. The rival acts like a living power scale. Each rematch shows how much the characters have changed. Character mirror. The best rivals often embody separate life paths. We have Naruto and Sasuke, Light versus L, and Mugen versus Jin. In this case, the rivalry often becomes more philosophical than physical. You are able to see the juxtaposition between the two characters and how they approach growth and conflicts. This also encourages the audience to reflect on what side they resonate with and how they also would approach the conflict. So why is the rivalry trope so popular? Competition is universal. Everyone understands wanting to be better, jealousy, admiration, comparing yourself to peers. A rivalry is also more personal than just fighting a villain. Viewers care more about, can Naruto save Sasuke, rather than Naruto fighting random villain number 8. As mentioned earlier, the audience picks sides. Rivalries naturally generate discussion. Who wins? Who's right? Who's stronger? A good rivalry can keep fandoms active for years. Naruto concluded almost an entire decade ago, and people, including myself, are still talking about the iconic rivalry between him and Sasuke. There are multiple ways for the rivalry trope to be done, so I'm going to be exploring some of the most common categories. Type number 1, brother rivalries. And keep in mind, this does not always mean literal brothers. The common theme in this category is that they just know each other too well. Some good examples would be Naruto and Sasuke, Gray and Natsu, Asta and Yuno. Key traits of the brother rivalry are that there is affection underneath all the conflict, they have a shared history, it's often very complex, and there is mutual growth. The second type is jealousy rivalries. One character usually feels threatened, and the conflict is stemming from insecurity. These rivalries are often very emotionally explosive. Think Bakugo, Deku, think Vegeta, Goku. Type 3 would be hatred or ideological rivalries. This is where the rival becomes the protagonist's opposite worldview. The most popular example of this would be Light versus L, although Mugen and Jin from Samurai Champloo would also be a good example. With this type of rivalry, the question often becomes, which philosophy is correct? And this is often the most intellectually engaging type of rivalry. Type number 4 would be friendly competition. So this is where they don't actually hate each other. It's really just a fun thing that pushes them to do better. Kakashi Sensei and Might Guy are my favorite representation of this because they just have fun with their rivalry. And then I also included Hinata and Kageyama from Haikyuu. These rivalries emphasize growth over conflict. Now we're going to get into some of the most popular anime rivalries. Starting off strong, Naruto and Sasuke. This may be the definitive shonen rivalry, and it is also the core plot of Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. Why Naruto and Sasuke's rivalry works. For one, emotional investment. We spend the entirety of Naruto Part 1 building up their rivalry and leading to the ultimate departure of Sasuke. Their iconic first battle at the Valley of the End hits so hard because audience desperately wants a different outcome than we know is the one coming. Reason number 2, shared loneliness. Naruto and Sasuke are really opposite sides of the same coin. Naruto growing up in a village that hates him, he doesn't understand why, and he has no friends. And then you have Sasuke, who did grow up with seemingly everything, but it was all taken away from him when his clan was slaughtered, and now people do not think kindly of the Uchiha name. Therefore, Sasuke and Naruto are able to see eye to eye on certain things, which makes the rivalry more interesting whenever they take two completely separate paths. Ideological split. So as I just said, despite their shared experience, they end up taking completely different paths. Sasuke is so blinded by revenge that he believes he has to sever all all emotional ties to achieve what he ultimately wants in life, and that is revenge on his brother. Sasuke has no problem doing bad things if it means achieving his goals, whereas Naruto, he believes that people need people and that we should lean on each other when we're in need. Naruto has a very strong moral code and he wants to see the good in people, and he chooses to believe that getting stronger does not mean you have to do it alone. And that is where they are fundamentally very different. Reason number 4 is they have multiple phases of their rivalry. The rivalry between them is ever evolving, especially across Naruto Part 1 and throughout Shippuden. The only constant is Naruto consistently chasing after Sasuke and trying to bring him back. But we get to see them as classmates, enemies, teammates, friends, brothers. We get to see various sides of them, which makes it more interesting. Lastly, Naruto and Sasuke are pretty evenly matched for the most part. They are both extremely OP in their own ways. They have all their little power-ups. Sasuke with the Sharingan and the Susanoo, and Naruto with Sage Mode and obviously the Jinchuriki. Throughout the series, we get to see their strength growing in different ways. I think the Sasuke versus Deidara fight is a really good example of this because that's kind of one of the first times we get to see Sasuke really just level up. An example for Naruto would be his fight with Pain. So although we aren't seeing Naruto and Sasuke battle each other, we are able to see them fighting other strong opponents and see how they handle that. So you can kind of figure out in your mind how their fight would go. And I think this naturally makes the audience want to see the other fight. I remember watching Naruto and being like, oh my god, when is their battle gonna come? It's not until pretty much the end of the series, but that's okay. All right, moving on to another iconic rivalry and the blueprint for Shonen rivalries, Goku and Vegeta. The rivalry represents a clash between two opposite paths of strength. So why does their rivalry work? For one, pride versus purity. In the beginning, Vegeta looks down on Goku because he views him as low class, and Goku's strength hurts his pride as a royal Saiyan. This is different from Goku, who strives to become stronger out of purely loving and enjoying getting stronger and fighting strong opponent. Reason number 2, constant escalation. After the first fight between them where Vegeta has to retreat, he begins to view Goku as his benchmark. Vegeta does not want to continue to be surpassed by Goku, so as Goku gets stronger, Vegeta also gets stronger. In Dragon Ball Super, they also become pretty evenly matched in terms of power, despite Goku's crazy power-ups. Lastly, this is a rivalry that is never truly resolved. As Saiyans, Goku and Vegeta are both limitless, which makes them the ideal rivals and training partners. Basically, they will continue to grow stronger and stronger than the people around them, and that is just going to make them inevitable rivals. That being said, their rivalry does start as enemies with Vegeta, coming to Earth and nuking it, but it does evolve into mutual respect and develops into kind of an odd alliance, and even maybe some could call it a friendship towards the very end. Bakugo and Deku. This is arguably one of the most realistic rivalries in shonen anime. Why their rivalry works? For one, it starts from bullying. Izuku is born powerless or quirkless, which makes him a natural outcast, while Bakugo is born extremely talented with lots of power, and he looks down on Izuku and goes out of his way to bully him. This is especially evident in the nickname that Bakugo gives Izuku, which is Deku. It's a play on Izuku's name in the kanji, and it basically means useless. The two of them have a very long and complex history, which makes for an interesting rivalry. Reason number 2 is that it examines insecurity. Due to Bakugo's natural prowess, he definitely has a superiority complex. There's an iconic scene in the show where Bakugo falls and Deku reaches his hand out to try to help him. Bakugo takes this as the utmost insult and that Izuku's looking down on him because how could someone who's quirkless help someone who is so powerful? Alternatively, Deku's insecure because he doesn't have power and all he wants in life is to be a hero. He's not sure how he could ever achieve that without power. Bakugo's insecurity becomes a major plot point as Deku begins to grow more and more powerful. I think a really good example of this is when Bakugo finds out that Deku is All Might's successor. I think it was one of the first times where his insecurity really shined through and you could just see it written all over his face that he was very jealous. And lastly, their rivalry evolves into mutual respect and trust. Despite the bullying, their relationship does grow and they grow as characters because of it. Izuku looks at Bakugo as someone to idolize, and this is apparent by him making his hero name Deku, the exact name that Bakugo made to make fun of him. On the flip side, Bakugo comes to admire Deku's perseverance and unwillingness to give up and accept accept the fate that he has been handed. Throughout the series, Bakugo begins to acknowledge his cruelty towards Deku, and they ultimately become classmates and allies at UA. They really become each other's driving force to become the best they can be and to become the top hero. They also know one another very intimately, and so they want the other person to be at their best because they want to beat them while they are at their best. But by the end of the series, they've become very close friends, akin to brothers really, and they've come to respect each other not only as people but as heroes. Light and L. Proof that rivalry does not require punching. Light and L are the perfect representation of a psychological and ideological rivalry. So why does their rivalry work? For one, it's a battle of intelligence. Light and L are both geniuses in their own right and view the other as a very worthy opponent. Light is a master of manipulation and takes proactive steps to ensure he is always one step ahead. Whereas L, a detective who's never met a case he can't solve, he's very analytical, intuitive, and patient, often doing things behind the scenes and sitting back and waiting to see how it unfolds. They both crave control and recognition and tend to isolate themselves from others, viewing people as game pieces rather than actual people who they could have a relationship with. Reason number 2, no physical fights required. Their conflict is defined by high stakes and psychological warfare. Light and L consistently strive to outwit and out-strategize the other in their chess-like rivalry. Light and L's rivalry is extremely suspenseful, with each little move that they make having a very big, lasting impact on the plot. This makes it very engaging for the audience. Reason number 3, opposite moral frameworks. Death Note does a really good job at exploring moral ambiguity and gray areas. There is no simple good versus evil in Death Note, and the characters are used to convey this theme. Light views himself as a utilitarian who is making the world a better place and a crime-free place. In his mind, the end, less crime, justifies the means, killing criminals. L, on the flip side, also values justice, but he prioritizes the rule of law and fairness. They both desire similar outcomes but have completely opposing views on how to achieve it. Lastly, the rivalry works because it has a negative outcome, which is very different from a lot of the other ones on this list. Their rivalry does not culminate in a positive ending where they both grow and have mutual love and respect for each other. In fact, it's the opposite, with their rivalry becoming all-consuming and ultimately leading to their downfall. Without getting into spoilers, L's stubbornness and refusal to give up, coupled with Light's hubris and growing self-righteousness, creates an opening to be exploited and used by the other for their own purposes. Alright, lastly, Asta and Yuno from Black Clover. In my opinion, I think they have the healthiest representation of a rivalry in shonen anime. Why do I say that? They are opposites. Asta and Yuno are literally the perfect representation of talent versus hard work. Asta is an oddity in his world because he has no magic, whereas Yuno is born natural talent and is a prodigy with magic. Asta has extreme resolve and is willing to do whatever it takes for him to become the Wizard King. Yuno, having the same goal as Asta, is able to advance his skills pretty quickly due to his natural prowess. They are their own people, but they both put their all into it and recognize each other's strength and dedication. Reason number 2 why their rivalry works. It's built on mutual respect and improvement. Despite their rivalry, they are really rooting for each other. Their rivalry is founded on a competitive friendship and the desire to surpass the other and reach their goal of becoming the Wizard King. Asta sees Yuno's power and uses it as a driver to work harder. And on the flip side, Yuno sees how strong Asta becomes despite having no magic, which fuels him to work harder. I think that their rivalry is very wholesome and it's acknowledged by both of them, which is pretty different than a lot of one-sided rivalries that are pretty common in anime. And lastly, they have their own journeys. They have the same goal, but they have 2 completely separate paths of achieving it. Asta joins the Black Bulls, the lowest ranking squad, and he helps them advance and gain recognition, while Yuno joins the most prestigious squad and he advances pretty quickly and gains notoriety. We're able to see them both grow as characters with their own plots and motivations rather than solely relying on their rivalry to fuel the plot. And this makes it a lot more fun and rewarding whenever they do cross paths, as they're able to see how their rival is progressing. And so are we. So I've talked about some of the most popular rivalries, but what makes a rivalry great? Equal importance. The rival must matter almost as much as the protagonist. Sasuke works because he feels like a second main character. Mutual growth. A rivalry can't be one-sided. Both characters must change because of the other. Think Asta and Yuno. Emotional complexity. Great rivalries mix admiration, jealousy with resentment and respect, not just hatred. A philosophical conflict. The best rivalries are often about ideas. Think Light versus L, and even Naruto versus Sasuke. Power levels alone aren't enough. Lastly, evolution. The relationship must changed. And there can be stages to this. It can go from strangers to competitors to enemies to allies. It can start in reverse, but there must be some level of evolution for a rivalry to truly be great. The reason that rivalry remains one of anime's most enduring tropes is because at its core, it is fundamentally human. Villains come and go, power systems change, but the desire to measure ourselves against someone else, to chase them, pass them, understand them, or defeat them, that's universal. And that's why decades after their stories began, people are still debating Goku and Vegeta, Light versus L, Naruto and Sasuke, because the rivalry is not just part of the story. In many cases, it is the story.